everybody. Welcome to Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live. How's it going, friends? I know it's been, seems like it's been a while since the last show here. For folks that are just tuning in or might be new to the show, we have a weekly live stream every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Usually, sometimes it'll vary, but that's for the most part consistent. And we talk about Sasquatch, cryptids, cryptozoology, mostly Bigfoot, but all sorts of weird stuff with various guests on. We have a good time with it. So if you're into this kind of thing, definitely feel free to hit the subscribe button. We're almost at 7,000 subscribers, so that's kind of fun. And for folks that are, longtime subscribers, thank you guys. This is the reason I do it. We just have a lot of fun talking about these topics and shedding a light, I think, on the Sasquatch topic and trying to take it a little more seriously. We try to have open discussions and intelligent conversations about the topic, and I think that's well needed in the field of Sasquatch and in cryptozoology in general. So for folks that I met at Crypticon, it was awesome to meet a few viewers out there. Really cool, great experience. That's why I was out last week. We had a great show hosted by Karac St. Laurent, who's actually going to be joining us tonight as well, but he's an awesome guest co-host. My favorite. That's why we love to have him on and guest co-host. And he did an awesome job talking about cryptozoology and education. Really, really cool. Great to listen to. But I was down in Ohio. I was actually out with Seth Breedlove at the Minerva property. We were doing some kind of Bigfoot filming. That area is obviously pretty well known when it comes to the topic. If you haven't seen it, the first episode of the Bigfoot Project is out over on the Small Town Monsters channel. So that's fun. We were filming another episode of that down there in Ohio right before CryptidCon. Then I went to CryptidCon. I had a great time, met so many awesome people that were Beyond the Trail fans, a couple people from the show as well tuned into the show, got to meet a lot of great folks, Renee Holland from Finding Bigfoot, Matt Moneymaker, a lot of other people in the Bigfoot world, and see a lot of old friends. Met Matt Pruitt as well. He was one that I just had on my show recently, which was really neat. But actually on Thanksgiving, hopefully my American viewers all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. But over the break, we actually had Beyond the Trail Olympic Bigfoot come out over on the Small Town Monsters channel. And that's awesome. That is sort of a tie-in to On the Trail of Bigfoot, The Discovery, which came out a few weeks ago as well. So you can watch one or the other. Watching them both is definitely the recommended thing to do, just because I think they complement each other. But that's over on the Small Town Monsters channel, and that is about the Olympic Project and the Olympic Peninsula, the sort of so-called nest site, as well as just the beauty of that part of Washington, which is just insane. The Olympic Peninsula is crazy. But anyway, speaking of Washington, next week's guest, we will actually be joined by Brent Dill, who is he's a YouTube channel called the Tall Ones, I believe. Yes, he's actually in the chat right now. So what's going on, Brent? Brent's going to be next Monday's guest. So we're really excited to talk to Brent. He's over in Washington. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But for this week's show, we have a really fun show coming up. We're going to be joined by quite a few guests here, and we will be talking about Bigfoot literature, Sasquatch books, just our favorite. I'm going to start kind of with, I try to keep it to 10 books from my collection, anyone else that has one. So we're going to have on Jeremiah Byron of the Bigfoot Society Podcast. People will be familiar with him. He's been on the show a few times. Karac St. Laurent, of course, who I mentioned just a little bit ago, and Tate Hieronymus of the Bluff Creek Project and the Bluff Creek Project Podcast. So without further ado, let's bring the boys in and start this off. What is going on, everybody?
Hello.
You guys missed a massive sneeze.
Oh boy.
Tell me more. I love that backdrop, Tate. That's awesome. That print.
That's
nice. With classic.
Is that a Bigfoot?
It's signed too. It's my prize poster.
Is it really? Wow.
Signed by Gimlin?
Yeah.
Signed by Bigfoot.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Great.
I have this that's signed by Gimlin and a track.
Nice. I do have to throw a shout out though. I am wearing the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum shirt. I was there last week when we were coming back from Crypticon. We stopped in Sutton, West Virginia, which is home of the Flatwoods Monster, aka Braxton County Monster, the Green Monster.
Really?
Braxy. Got one of these and adopted a kitten along the way whose name is also Braxy because we got him at the Flatwoods Museum. So he's been a little rascal. Fun to do that. And on the long drive back, about 9 hours driving back, we had the cat in tow. So he was awesome though, well behaved, wanted to hang out with us. So that was fun. But I do got to shout out the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum. Super awesome folks there. If you're driving through Sutton to see the Flatwoods Monster Museum, definitely go check them out. It's a no-brainer. It's literally down the street. And they have some awesome, really cool Bigfoot gifts. I mean, they had this one. I'm just going to have to show this. This was it's like a 3D. It's a 3D. The 3D printed
That's
Bigfoot.
amazing.
That's cool.
What a great
But
idea.
check this out.
Yeah.
This is probably the best. Okay. So look at this. I have to get a light to show you guys this.
Oh,
Let me just-
I see.
yeah.
I've
where you're
seen
going.
this. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is
grab my
cool.
phone. Ready? Oh,
Look at that.
It's
is that,
better
is
than
that
I
too
expected.
bright?
No, it's kind of washed out.
Oh,
There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
It looks a lot better when you have it plugged into the wall. So
Yeah,
it's
the photo
basically-
you showed me of it was really cool.
Yeah,
Dude.
so it's a Patterson Gimlin film sort of frame.
And it's like in color when it lights up and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3D printed. I mean, they do some really cool stuff now
That
with
is
3D
so cool.
printing. Gives me a lot of ideas about stuff I'd like to do in terms of cool items. And not only that, but you can scan tracks. So if you have footprint casts, you know, whether it's plaster, hydrocal, whatever material it is, you get that 3D print. I mean, those things, the plastic, it's not that I don't want to say it's indestructible, but you have a lot of, you can preserve that detail and not have to worry about breaking a track. So,
Well, speaking of that, I kind of like what Michael Merchant's doing with he's casting tracks in like, what is it?
It's some type of metal.
metal. Yeah. There you go. There's another one.
Right.
The metal's cool. There's also the plastic ones. I don't know if I have that, the David Ellis track here.
Yeah.
Is
I was
this
going to
sort
say,
of-
the museum has started doing plastic
That's
stuff.
It's like a resin. I got to start getting into that because I do make track copies of the few molds that I have for conferences. Like I sold a bunch of them at CryptoCon. Just a lot of fun. But yeah, well, awesome. A lot of good people in the chat. What is going on? Bigfoot Barbecue and Camp Cookout. That's Jay Burge. What's going on, Jay? I'm actually going on his show this week on Thursday. And I'm having Jay on my show in a couple weeks as well. So I'm really excited to talk to him. From what I've heard, you know, his encounter story is pretty incredible. So it'll be great to talk. And then we got Macy as well. How's it going? Chris Edwards, something to Sasquatch about. Hello, everyone. Hey, Strangeness. What's going on, man? Got to meet Aaron at CryptidCon. That was really fun. He was going around dressed as a Krampus at one point, which was pretty scary, but it was cool. It was really cool. So that was awesome. We got our buddy Jonathan Sasquatch, Jonathan Easley of Western Bigfoot Exploration. What is going on?
Bigfoot.
We got Joe. He's from Western New York Bigfoot Investigation Group. Joe's awesome. He does a lot of cool live streams as well. Go check out Joe's channel. He does some fun discussions, kind of spontaneous, a lot of them. So really cool. And of course, we got Brent in the chat, who will be next week's guest at the Tall Ones, and lots of other cool folks. What is going on, guys? All right, so let's get started here before I get carried away with reading all the comments already. There's a lot of good ones, but guys, so we're talking Bigfoot literature tonight. That's the topic. So I kind of just sort of thought, you know, given there's so many documentaries and a lot of people get their, I don't want to say Bigfoot knowledge, but Bigfoot information, the Bigfoot information that's out there, right? Some of it, which is not good information, which is either misinformation or simply
Entertainment.
entertainment or what's the word I'm looking for? Like a rumor that sort of gets started. Not a rumor. I don't know what the word is. My point is somebody makes a statement, right? Bigfoot make stick structures and that takes off. And the more it's repeated, it just becomes accepted. So people start saying, well, Bigfoot definitely makes stick structures. Well, where did that come from? So I think a lot of that is due to, you know, general people's attention spans are a lot shorter nowadays than they were. We're inundated with Instagram, clickbait, TikTok, whatever. But I think there's nothing like a good old book to, especially some of the old stuff. I like a lot of that pre-internet Bigfoot and general cryptozoology writing, you know, by a lot of people that were interested in it well before, you know, the internet. They had to track their information down in a lot harder ways than we do now. We have it easy. You know, we can Google search, we can do a Facebook search, try and find somebody, a witness that might, you know, be willing to talk or something. So it was a lot more difficult. So I think it's good to look back on those books, and excited to talk about some of that stuff. So
it really gives you perspective and respect for what the old researchers had to do.
Yeah. Seriously.
I mean, John Green, I mean, how incredible his stuff was. But go ahead,
People
Karac.
like John. I was about to say people like John Green. I can't even imagine the amount of effort that had to go into that.
Yeah, it was a lot of chasing people down, and you know, especially at a time when they're really, nowadays I think it's, and I get this a lot, all the places we've traveled with Beyond the Trail alone, the I don't know, I'm going to coin the term, the post-finding Bigfoot phenomena. We're going to call it that, or the post-finding Bigfoot effect, because everywhere I go, it says that there's a little bit more of an openness in certain parts of the country and North America in general because of the aftermath of finding Bigfoot. Whereas before it was sort of limited to certain places, maybe Florida Skunk Ape, Ohio, the Pacific Northwest, obviously, Bigfoot can't be where I'm at, that kind of thing. People didn't think that. So finding Bigfoot changed it a little bit. So I definitely think that's kind of an interesting cultural phenomenon as well. But back then there was nothing like that. There were maybe a few books, but you really had to it was a very niche thing. You had to look pretty hard and long to try and find something like that. So definitely interesting. We also, I just want to say, we have Jonathan Dodd in the chat. What is going on? Oh, do I have the print? I gotta show this.
Oh, you gotta show
Sorry.
it. Yeah.
So Jonathan gave me this incredible print of a illustration he's done. I don't know if I'm getting too much glare on here. One of his works of art. It's a mountain lion, as you can see, and there's one of those A-frame cabins. I'm getting here. Let me turn maybe if I turn this screen off. There we go. So you can just kind of see that a little better. It's really cool. Jonathan Dodd, obviously, very talented artist, has done some stuff with STM, some of our films. Just a great dude. I got to meet him at CryptoCon as well. He was really cool. So it's awesome. You get to go to these events, and a lot of people don't like the events. Like, oh, it's like a fan kind of thing. Yeah, in some ways it is, but it's really cool to be able to meet people that you've interacted with or known for quite a while online, and being able to kind of connect there and network and come up with future projects.
I was going to say, it is funny. Like, you get to do that. Like, you meet these people online. I remember meeting Alex and Eli for their first time.
Yep.
This past July, and then Jeremiah. And
yeah.
I think.
That was really, that was fun.
I can't remember what Jeremiah said. He's like, you are real.
Dude, I don't want to get all like crazy on you, but it's weird, like when you go from just talking in your basement to people, and then like they're there in front of your face.
It's cool.
Like Alex is like, let's go see the Van Meter Visitor. I'm like, heck yes, let's do it. And
so that was in the summer. We got to meet Eli and I as we were driving through to Colorado. We literally had to pass through Des Moines, Iowa, and then we're like,
represent.
Hey, let's hang. We go to the Bigfoot barbecue, and then I didn't know Van Meter was right outside of town. I'm like, dude, let's go check it out. Let's do it. And it's a lot of fun. I remember meeting Tate. It was on the side of a mountain somewhere out there.
It was in yes. Well, I think we were out of gas, and we all had to turn around halfway.
Yeah, we had to go. We were up in the mountains, and we were out of gas. So we had to go back into town before we could find a place to camp for the night. That was a fun one.
It was pretty fun.
But anyway, back to the topic at hand. We also have Tommy Cooper in the chat as well. What's going on? Tommy of Cryptovania, very cool dude. Met him as well in Pennsylvania a few years ago. So I don't know. I'm just going to kick this off and just start grabbing a book. Maybe we'll do it in a sort of, I'll do a book or two and then pass it to the next person. So I'm going to start out with my favorite Bigfoot book by far, and should come as no surprise. I've talked about it a lot. It is John Bindernagel's first book. I have not gotten the second one. It's pretty pricey, hard to get nowadays, but this was North America's Great Ape, the Sasquatch. Absolutely amazing. Karac's got it as well. I lent this to Karac back in the day. I had actually received it. A lot of these books that I got in my collection were from John Horrigan, who I've had on the show as well, who is really great. He was into this stuff a while ago, and he gave a lot of this stuff to me as he was kind of offloading some of his paranormal collection. But what I love about this book is that it reads like a wildlife guide. So I use a lot of wildlife guides, the Peterson guides or the Audubon Society. They have sort of guides to North American mammals or guides to North American wildlife. These are just great things when you're out in the field, when you're trying to, maybe you need to identify scat or tracks that you find along the way. Those books are awesome to just carry with you. I keep it in my Bigfoot evidence kind of box that I have, but this one reads just like that and should come as no surprise, as Bindernagel was really a biologist, and the way he looked at the phenomena was like you'd look at another biological animal. If you were, let's say, studying moose or black bear in a certain area, he kind of applied that to North America. So the way it's written, I love. It's a little, I'm not going to say there's not much of a narrative. It's maybe narrative is not the right word, but it's written sort of dry. So people might not find it as interesting as a book that just talks about people's encounters or reads or you can read word for word eyewitness accounts. This is sort of, it's talking about the biological traits, behavior, specifically, stuff like rock throwing, whoops, that sort of stuff. And it dissects it. So it's very methodical in that way. So it's definitely not your kind of bedtime read to your kids kind of story, unless you want them to be super smart, then you should totally do that. But yeah, so I definitely love that. But has anybody else here read that or have any thoughts on that? I know Karac certainly does, but anybody else that wants to jump in?
I haven't read it, but it does sound like a book that people should have in their backpack, I think, if they're new to the subject or just camping in general. I think it's a good book to have, and it's on my list of books to get.
Definitely. It's also on my list as well. And I'll put in a little to the side about it. So people that are watching this, that book, if you're trying to get it like on eBay, that's currently going for like $75 to $80.
Yeah.
So if you're at a yard sale or an estate sale or library sale and you see the books that we're talking about for like $1 or $2, you grab it.
You should. Yeah.
You know, I'm not gonna. I wouldn't be surprised if Steven Strufert has some of these books at his bookstore, because
for sure, yeah,
he probably has like multiple copies of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, there's plenty of folks. I don't know if Laurent is selling any of these up at the museum in Maine. I don't know if Cliff has any, but I'm sure all these folks in their own personal collections, they have copies of this. It's just a great one. I think in the chat, Joe says, I have John's book, Discovery of the Sasquatch, Alex. Yeah, that's his second book. He only wrote 2 books from what I understand. Mm-hmm. And the other one is harder to find than even this one.
Yeah.
So that's the one that I'm kind of on the lookout for. But like I said, this is just an awesome, awesome book. Highly recommend it to anybody interested in the Sasquatch phenomenon. And as Brent says, John was such an amazing human being. I've heard that from everyone who's ever met him, said he was just a really down-to-earth guy. Talked to Justin Chernopesky about kind of interviewing him. I think he, in the later years of his life, it was a few years before he passed. So what an amazing experience. I mean, totally. Absolutely. Donald Fuller asks, can these books still be purchased? Yeah, as we mentioned, you can kind of, if you want to go on Amazon and look for it, maybe eBay, but people will probably be driving the prices up. Yeah. Jonathan Dodd says, I guess this is probably the second book. It's like $188 on Amazon.
Oh,
crazy.
So, always. I use an app for all of my cryptozoology books called Thrift Books, and I was telling you about this Jeremiah. It's really great because it gives you notifications for when your book in your wish list becomes available. So the moment that it's online, it, and you can grab it before anybody else grabs it.
That is so cool.
Yeah. And it can be a fight for some of these books. I have to fight a little bit for this, for sure. I actually wanted to show off to just one of the really like classic Bigfoot illustrations out there comes from John Bindernagel's book. And I don't know if he himself, he had an illustrator sketch this.
Do you know what page it's on?
Yeah, it is on page 30 and 31. And it's this great comparison between the profile of a bear and what witnesses who you might deem reliable.
Oh, nice.
Note when they, And it just really highlights some, like a wildlife guide, simple stuff that even though the book is wordy, is easy to digest for anybody who's reading it. So the first thing it says is, note the prominent snout on the bear, and note the relatively flat face and the absence of a snout on the Sasquatch, for example. So when you're, this is even a great guide for people who want to interview people who can ask, okay, well, if you saw it from the side, what did you see on the face? Is this something that, it had like a big face, it could have been a bear, or is this, no, this thing had a flat face and, instantly, okay, not bear,
Right. No, totally. And that, I think what's great is too, and as I mentioned, so methodical. So you have a whole section on predation, right? For example, what Sasquatch might eat. And then he'll have a illustration of a Bigfoot holding ducks and a stick. I mean, all based on an eyewitness sighting, and which for some reason reminded me of an awesome sighting I heard from Paul Bartholomew in the Whitehall area of these Japanese tourists. Karac, you probably remember this one.
This is my favorite New York Bigfoot story.
It is so cool. These Japanese tourists were fishing in the section of Lake Champlain down towards Whitehall that's very thin, looks like a river almost. And I guess in conversation later with somebody in town, they mentioned, well, we didn't know you guys had monkeys here. And they were like, we don't. Well, they saw this small ape-like creature basically fishing in the river right there as they were fishing. And they didn't really think much of it because in Japan, they have those, I don't know if they're macaques, the ones that goes in those hot springs. So for them, it wasn't that weird to see this, almost baboon-like creature, which, they're not supposed to have in New York. Right. So that's a really cool one. But so as I mentioned, really methodical. Love it. I will take a few of the questions kind of here or comments before we move on to another book. I'll do a second book and then I'm going to pass it to somebody else. But Jay says Dr. John also changed his mind about what Sasquatch is after his first book. Oh, that's interesting. All the more reason for me to want to get that book. Tommy Cooper says, why not have somebody read it on YouTube? I don't know if what's the legality?
The problem with audiobooks on YouTube is that there's just legal problems a lot of the time. You need to get permission from whoever is making the money from the book, essentially. And I don't know who's making the money from this. It might just be the publisher at this point. I'm not sure.
As Joe correct. Yeah, he says, yes, they are macaques, Alex. Yeah, I thought so. They're, they don't really have a long tail. Peggy, what's going on, Peggy? She asks, I have the Discovery of the Sasquatch. Is that a pricey one? Ooh la la. Yes, certainly is. It seems to be. We also have Mateo Flores. How's it going, Mateo? Wonder who that is.
Oh, yes.
I'm getting trolled again. I should get used to it at this point. He's talking about John Keel in the chat there.
Jeremiah, your laugh is so infectious right there.
It really is.
I'm convinced it's Eli Watson. That's all.
That's the first person first time hearing this joke, and I just guessed it has to be Eli. There's no one else who just impersonates a fake person.
Okay, does Eli like mayonnaise? Because that name sounds like mayonnaise. Mateo mayonnaise. It just
I have no idea. But I do want to take this question real quick. Donald says, are any of these books narrated on the internet? I have a learning disorder comprehending anything I read. Narration is better for me. Yeah, I don't know if there's audiobooks there. I assume for maybe some of the newer ones there might be.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure though.
I would suggest, Donald, that you look at John Bindernagle's YouTube channel. He does not do readings of his books, but he has a series of lectures that are all included in the readings he's written in both books. I think mainly from the Discovery book, which is one of the people in chat had it. And they're really amazing lectures. And he goes over diagrams that are in the books as well. The one that we showed earlier there's a whole lecture where 1/3 of it is on that diagram, essentially. So certainly go check that out for things that are easier to comprehend. Yeah,
for sure. All right, next book I'm going to pick. This one is sort of, I don't know how well known it is, but it's called The Historical Bigfoot by Chad Arment. I think there is I don't know how many editions there are. There is a second one, I believe, or something similar that he did. But it is, as you can see, I've got all these little papers in there bookmarked on things that I found interesting. So it is a super simple book. It's basically just all the different Canadian provinces and U.S. states listed. So you have a list of a lot of them. And with old newspaper clippings of stories of wild men and gorillas and that sort of stuff. Cool. So I mean, if I go to Maine, I can find one of the ones I have highlighted is the story about the extraordinary wild man. And this is from 1855. Or I can go to, what's one I have in here, Vermont. The old Legend of the Old Slippery Skin. All these different ones, and it's. There's not a lot in there. It'll be the transcription of the original newspaper clipping, and it's super useful because I think these are good jumping off points. Let's say you are in, Montana, and you want to find some old, Bigfoot reports or wild men gorilla reports, whether or not we're considering there's a Bigfoot, just interesting encounters. You can go look for that. Maybe based on what's in the book, you can find the original clipping on newspapers.com or find some leads that might lead you down a path of other sightings in the area and connecting it with modern reports. Just an idea. I'm not going to go too in depth about the book, but I definitely recommend it. I don't know where it can really be. I think it's on Amazon, but definitely recommended because you can just flip through and there's my state of New Hampshire, but it's just got all the different states and territories. Not every single state, but there's a good amount of them. So The Historical Bigfoot by Chad Arment.
Nice.
Early reports of wild men, hairy giants, and wandering gorillas in North America. Very cool book. So I recommend that for sure. So who wants to take it away with a book? Well, Jeremiah, why don't you go? We'll just go in a little.
All right. So first one I have is The Essential Guide to Bigfoot.
Sweet.
By Ken Gerhardt. This is a copy I got signed at the Van Meter Visitor Festival this year. Really, really good book. So it's a newer book. Of course, we're probably all familiar with Ken, cryptozoologist. But it's a great intro, very easy to read about Bigfoot, and it goes about just the history of Bigfoot historical events, different Bigfoots around the world, calls out different Bigfoot sightings. It's just a really, really good book, and I can't recommend it enough for sure. I'm going to talk to Ken about it in a week. So
Ken is the man. Yeah, and the illustration is incredible, done by the very talented Sam Sheeran. Yep, done a lot of Small Town Monster stuff. He's a really cool dude. I've talked to him a little bit as well. Just awesome. But Ken is great. That's an awesome book. I have a copy actually signed by Ken as well in other part of my collection. So very cool. Definitely recommend that. Who's next?
I'll go last. True Clubhouse rule.
All right.
Fair enough. All right. Well, this is probably aside from Bindernigel's book that we showed off, my favorite Bigfoot book. It's by Christopher L. Murphy, and it is called The Bigfoot Film Journal.
Right on.
And it's a relatively easy read. It's a little bit packed, but it's only, around 100 pages long? Yeah, page 98 is the last page of the actual information. And out of all the books that I have had the pleasure of reading that talk about the Patterson-Gimlin film, this is the book that goes into the most depth, addresses the most points and counterpoints, and just tells... Before reading this book, I thought that I knew the circumstances of the Patterson-Gimlin film, and I was absolutely dead wrong. I had about 1/11 of the story down, essentially. And it's just so great and so in-depth, and it's what allowed me, Alexander, I printed out that article about the whole suit theory, and handed it out when we went to the New York Bigfoot conference.
That's right.
That was based on the stuff that I had read in this, not my conclusion, but just being able to look at this book and get the information that I needed. And it's just absolutely incredible. And there's a lot of really cool things in it too. They have
is that the one that has the reprint of Patterson's book in it?
I don't
know which one I'm thinking of.
I don't know the page that it's on.
Okay, never mind. There was some book about the PGF film that had a sort of reprint PGF film, the PG film. Not
that I'm aware of, but yeah, maybe I've missed it somewhere. But it just goes into stuff. Funny enough, it actually uses the silhouette of the illustrations that are in Bindernigel's book right here.
Oh, nice.
It just shows so much. I mean, there's a diagram right here. You can't quite see it that well, but it's a diagram of how far each object is from the camera in the famous frame of the Patterson-Gimlin film, which is just absolutely incredible. And there's a whole diagram here illustrating it from an aerial view as well. It is.
That's awesome.
It's the next best thing to being able to measure everything at Bluff Creek yourself, and it's just such an incredible story.
Tate's
I'm
hold my beer. I'm about to jump in.
Tate, you should get this book. You would love this.
No, I was gonna say it because I have a Christopher Murphy book too, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it now.
Chris Murphy's good, but I do want to say, Karac, is that I totally lost my train of thought here. But yeah, Jonathan says, Alex, I think that was the Greg Long's book we were looking at the film site. Yes, because I know there was a book that had the reprint of Patterson's entire book within it, which I thought was
really cool. This is not nearly that long. Yeah,
no, but it's really good, and I think Karac, if I'm mistaken, does that go over some of the controversies as well regarding Patterson?
Yes, it does. That was actually the before I took a break from reading it. That was the last section that I had read before I kept reading to the end of it. Was talking about Patterson's character. And of course, that got into things like Al Diatley and very specific stuff that you don't hear aside from maybe a few different videos on YouTube, like the fact that, Roger was an artist, and whenever he drew Sasquatch, he tended to draw females, and that was interesting. But there's also this counterpoint of like, well, was he basing it off of a future Patty, or was he basing it off of Albert Osman's account?
That's what
there's a lot of reason to see both of those, So it's also a very balanced.
Thomas Steenberg say that he basically plagiarized one of the British Columbia Bigfoot female drawings. I don't know which accounter it was, but
it looks a lot like the Albert Osman sketch.
I know he based some of them off.
The shape of the head is pretty exact. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also such a balanced book in that way. You can definitely tell the author has taken a side in the book, which is pro Patterson essentially, but he doesn't stray away from any of the admittedly just kind of weird stuff that happened. The thing that struck me the most reading was when he mentioned that it is a known fact from both Bob and Patterson's testimony that Patterson did go out to Bluff Creek the morning of the recording before Bob Gimlin had woken up at camp. And
so cool.
Yeah, you would have. I've read that nowhere else. Nowhere else could I have possibly found that unless I talked to Bob Gimlin himself.
Well, look what the cat dragged in.
Hello, everyone.
Eli Watson.
Oh, meow. What's
Mateo
up, dude?
Flores?
What's up?
Mateo Flores.
Alex, though, I'm glad I came in at this point because the book you're thinking of is the Bigfoot film controversy.
Yes. Okay.
A different
snap.
edition, though.
You know what's hilarious about that
Okay.
book?
So that's true. And I think something the Sasquatch about is saying, I believe it's in the film Controversy by Murphy that has the Patterson book in it. So is that
This is the one that has Roger Patterson's book.
so that
reprinted.
okay, so it's like an
Yeah.
updated version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the
Oh,
one
Is that
you
also a
brought?
Murphy
Is
book?
is that the one you brought, Eli?
It is. I took this to the Patterson Gimlin site.
So that's what we were reading at the film site this summer when we were filming back then.
I also
yeah, okay.
headbutted that book too. Remember?
Yeah, you did.
What?
You were looking. You,
Oh my god.
I can't remember who was filming, but I bent down to get something. I accidentally hit the book with my head.
Oh, I see. So
Wow.
Joe says Meldrum's book is also good too. I will get to that. Don't worry, Joe.
Yes.
I got to read this comment from Mothman. Our buddy Mothman says, I don't read Bigfoot books. If I need Bigfoot knowledge, I consult Robbie Knievel. Hey man, there's nobody that knows more than about
Savagery.
Bigfoot than Robbie Knievel. So that's I'm glad we have that settled.
Undisputed.
We also got Les Odell. He says best doc out there. Les, I got to hang out with Les both at Crypticon and last week after going to Sutton. What an awesome guy. If you haven't checked out what Les does, I have one of his shirts. I'm probably wearing it on a future stream. Solid dude. I got to talk to you, Les. I got some stuff to send you.
Shirt
message you
change. Shirt
afterwards.
change, buddy.
I got to go. I dig through the closet. Yeah. Awesome. And Mothman says, one time I did peyote and remote viewed Eli Watson's Bigfoot knowledge. There you go.
Makes sense.
Okay, on a serious note, Jay says, this is amazing watching these youngsters really doing research. I'm very impressed with the panel. Yeah, I think it's important that people getting into the field do their due diligence and look at some of the older stuff so we don't keep on that social media trend of rediscovering hoaxes and posting them and saying, wow, have you seen this? And I don't know. I think there's a lot of us trying to hopefully kind of move the conversation forward a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, all right. Who wants to Eli, why don't you share your is that the book you wanted to share?
That was not the book I wanted to share, but
Okay.
I heard you guys talking about it, so I was like, I need to help my boy out.
Yeah, he says thank God for Eli coming in clutch. Macy says that. Right on.
Yeah. The book I actually wanted to share was this, The Abominable Snowman Legend Come to Life by Ivan Sanderson.
That's
Awesome.
your boy, Eli.
This is my boy.
Yep.
Sandy Files.
Yeah. Still working on that. But yeah, so this is like my pretty rare first edition, which goes for a pretty high price. I paid a lot more for this book than I'm willing to say out loud. But Lauren
Sometimes, you know.
Lauren
$100
Coleman has a reprint.
Oh, he's a
Yeah,
reprint
lot
as
more than
well.
that.
Oh, that's a great cover.
It's okay. I prefer this one, dude. Look at this.
It's,
Look,
and
and
it's
it-
got
and
the
it's got
it's got
the-
the Shipton track and the
It does have that, which is apparently
It would make
that's
a
based
great
on an
t-shirt.
actual mask that Sanderson saw in his travels.
wow.
Oh,
Really?
man.
No
Is
way.
that
Yeah.
the whole book right there? It looks like a
You have the
Bible.
Pang Boche hand
This?
hand
Oh
yet?
yeah, okay, there it is.
Karac?
I do in fact have the hand handy.
You guys got to see this. This is pretty cool what Karac put together.
Check this out. This is it.
What?
Ooh, there it
He
is.
made a kind of replica of the Pang Boche hand.
Did you
The
3D
monkey
print that?
spa.
No, the process is very anticlimactic. I bought a skeleton hand at Walmart and then took necklaces apart and tied string to it, and that was the process.
That's pretty awesome though.
Still, it's cool.
It's so
Good way to
cool.
do it.
It accomplishes the effect.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Eli. I'll let you. If you have other books, we'll do a little bit of a rotation. So Tate, if you want to share a book, or if you want to keep talking, Eli, I don't know if we want to hear it though.
Oh, you know what, dude? I don't know.
Savage moment. I'm sorry.
We
I'm sorry.
appreciate
You're
you.
good.
I love
You're
you.
good.
I love you, dude. I'm sorry.
Alex, I love the nonchalant way you say things like that. It's so wonderful. It's not even like it sounds hostile. It just sounds like you're telling Eli a fact.
But when I tell
Conversation.
Eli, I mean a hostile, in a hostile manner.
I know you did. I know you tied me up in duct tape to a chair.
It wasn't duct tape. It was painter's tape.
In order to remote view
an entire roll.
I'm not cruel.
So this is what happens when you're out Bigfooting in an area. We're chilling in Mount Hood, and you got a lay moment to just hang out, and you end up spending an entire roll of painter's tape taping your friend together. This is Bigfooting behind the scenes.
To a chair.
This is why all of them are weirdos, dude. It drives you insane.
But anyway, Tate, the floor is yours.
Well, for my first book, this is probably my favorite book in my collection. It's another Christopher Murphy book, and it's
Nice.
in association with John Green and Thomas Steenberg. Me, the Sasquatch. I can't. Where's the? Hold on. There we go.
Nice.
But it talks. It has the same thing Karac was talking about. It shows like the measurements of like the trees and stumps in the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it talks about First Nations Sasquatch references and stuff like that with early written records and all that cool stuff. And it's signed by everybody who wrote the book and had a part with it. And Daniel Perez signed it. Moneymaker, Bobo, Gimlin, Jeff Meldrum, and John Mayanzinski.
Wow.
So it's definitely it's up in my collection. It's one of my favorite books that I have so far.
Yeah.
That's legit.
And
Cool.
this book actually helped the Bluff Creek Project rediscover the film site. They used this book as a reference.
Wow.
So
That's incredible. What was that process like? Were you involved for refinding the site yourself, or?
I was not. I came in a little bit later.
Okay.
But I'll talk a little more about that for my second book, which unfortunately I don't have it here. It's coming tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll save that for the end because I think that's a good book for people to look for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, we'll talk about that. But I do want to take a comment here. Jay says I had a signed copy of Renee DeHinden's first book and lost it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, that is so cool.
Killing me,
Renee was awesome. I love Renee blows a gasket on YouTube. That's a good video.
What was his first book's title? Do we know? Because I have a DeHinden book, but I don't know if it's his first one.
Yeah, Jay, if you remember the name, feel free to throw it in there.
It's not the one I showed you. Was it sent a picture of?
I don't think so. This is the one that I have. It's by Don Hunter and DeHinden. Yep. Okay, it is the same one then. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, that's a classic yellow cover. I love that. I don't have.
Yeah, yellow pages even too. It's a very old style book. They actually have a cigarette ad in the middle of it. It's quite interesting.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. That's legit. Yeah, that's cool. There's a comment from Glenn H who says, have to say I've been really impressed with both of your recent releases on the Olympic Project research. If any group is going to produce convincing evidence beyond reproach, it's that one. Yeah, they're just a great group. Obviously, he's referencing On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Discovery, which came out, as well as the Olympic Bigfoot, which Eli edited, which he did a fantastic job. That was an awesome adventure. Great job, Eli. Jay says, I want to sing with Eli this year on Mount St. Helens.
Okay. So, why?
Okay. No. So Jay's really cool. He's in that area, and I don't want to be spilling too many beans here, but I was talking to him. We're planning on doing some Mount St. Helens filming. We know Mark Marcel and a lot of those guys as well. And Jay has had an incredible encounter out in that area. He lives in that part of Washington near Mount St. Helens, so we'll probably end up hanging out with him. So he probably saw some of the musical parts in some of our Beyond the Trail. So I'm sure you guys will have a fun time doing that. Something to Sasquatch about says, I think that's his only book.
I'm pretty sure DeHinden wrote more. I had a book in high school that I'm pretty sure was by DeHinden, and it wasn't this one.
Okay, he says, Jay does say he signed it to me and my wife. It was yellow. So
I bet you anything it's this one. Yeah,
that has to be that one, right?
That is, yeah. Still, that's pretty cool. And Les says, awesome job, Eli. Absolutely,
thanks.
Great job.
Yeah, very good job.
Cool. Eli has to be the youngest person in the room, youngster in the room.
It's true.
I don't know.
I don't think that's. I think actually.
I think Karac's the oldest.
Maybe it's because I'm not wearing
oldest by intellect,
gloves.
Oh.
I'll never tell.
Oldest by intellect.
You flatter me.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
I don't know.
we'll
Something like that. Yeah.
But so all right, on to the next. I'm going to do two books now since I have so many books. I'm going to do a Coleman book, Lauren Coleman. This is Bigfoot, The True Story of Apes in America. I like this one a lot. Now, the problem is there's so many Coleman books. He did so many. There's the Field Guide to Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and Mystery, Hominid, Man, Beast, Anthropoid kind of stuff. So there's a lot of books by Coleman. It's very tough to decide. I just kind of picked this one. I think it goes over a lot of the interesting factors in the Bigfoot phenomena, but any stuff by Coleman in general. This one's just a classic one that I really enjoy. So
that was the first one I ever read.
Oh, right on. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, it has a lot of stuff about backstories about Sanderson and others as well. So it definitely, in classic kind of Lauren Coleman style, it gives a more, I would say, cryptozoological kind of overview to the Bigfoot, specifically kind of North American stuff, which is really awesome. I don't know what year it's from, but I think it was maybe the 80s. This may be an edition from the early 2000s though, but yeah, so that's a really cool one. And my next one is The Locals by Tom Powell. I have a brochure for some kind of monster thing popping out of here, but so people that know Tom Powell, he works a little bit up at the at Cliff's Museum at the North American Bigfoot Center. He researches or has researched with Cliff. This is a really cool book. It's sort of just talking about in a narrative sort of way. You can read it and be pretty entertained about dialogues between, I don't want to say kind of characters, but it kind of is, sort of some of the stuff about Bigfoot in that part of Oregon. He's kind of in that Portland, Mount Hood area, which is a absolute hotbed of activity. I mean, it's stuff that's come out of there over the years, as we all kind of know. And it's just called The Locals, a contemporary investigation of the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomenon. It includes some of the stuff that's happened in some of these neighborhoods out there in Oregon where people have activity going on really right in their backyards and in that area. I think it is available on Amazon, but I definitely recommend that. Tom Powell, he was with the BFRO. He now has written another book, I believe, which is a little bit like the fringes of science, I think, a little bit talking about UFOs and that sort of stuff as well. I don't have that, but I know Cliff was selling them at his museum, which was really cool. So it's a fantastic book, really entertaining, and just kind of. I remember when I read it, it must have been, 10 years ago, perhaps. What's going on?
Everyone just went blank and came back. I freaked out. Sorry. Obviously, okay. I have no poker face like the comments.
No worries. No, I when I read this book, it kind of made me think a little bit differently about Sasquatch. I was thinking Bigfoot was something that was seen more in these remote wilderness areas that you really have to get out there. But this kind of brought the idea that, well, people that live in certain rural parts of Oregon specifically were having stuff going on. And I wasn't really very familiar with the habituation kind of stuff. I think this delves a little bit into that. So definitely recommend The Locals by Tom Powell. So check that out for sure. Now, before we move on, I'll take a few questions and comments here. We've got some awesome ones. Let's see. We have Harry, Man, Hoaxes and Hoodwinks. Nikki, how's it going? She has a cool channel. She does a lot of live streams as well. I've been watching a few of those recently. Very entertaining. She actually had on Rick Dyer for a show, and she focuses more on hoaxes and that sort of stuff. And that was really interesting. A couple of us, I think Tate and Jonathan and I were watching when Rick Dyer and Steve Culls were going at it. It was very entertaining, especially if you know about the Georgia Bigfoot hoax and that.
Was that recent, that show?
Yeah, it was. I think it was maybe a month or so ago. That's
really crazy. Sure. Dyer hasn't been on in podcasts and stuff for quite a number of years. Wow.
And it's a cool angle. I think it's important to look at the hoaxes and show people kind of all the wool that's been pulled over people's eyes when it comes to Bigfoot. And the I think they just did a recent video where it was like top alleged Bigfoot videos and that sort of stuff. So definitely check that out too. A lot of great people doing a lot of good things. Brent says, I love Tom Powell. He's such a great presenter. I've never heard him speak, but I've heard good things about his talks and everything. So very cool. Joe Turry, what is going on? Joe actually did Big Muddy. So awesome to have Joe. He says, hello, everyone, Alex. Eli raised the bar with that Olympic edit. Going to be tough to beat that one. That's funny. Eli, you got to tell me what you thought about that. Because I know behind the scenes, like.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone seems to really like it. And to me,
it's really good.
That's what everyone says. And I don't think so.
See, that's so funny because, Eli was telling me this as he was editing, and that same thing happened to me in the Colorado one, Rocky Mountain Sasquatch. There was a lot of stuff going on in my life at the time, and I didn't think it came out the way I necessarily wanted to. And I was like, oh, this one's going to be a flop. But everyone was like, oh, it's the best one so far. I love this. It's my favorite one yet. I'm like, what? Why? But,
so I got a question for Eli. Well, first off, my favorite episodes are the Bigfoot Mountain and Bluff Creek since I'm in it. And the other one is, the question is, Eli, I have not seen the new one yet. So should I say the editing sucks?
Is that
if you want me to, I can say that. Or if you want me to say
the effect of that is lost if you ask that publicly of Eli.
Well, he can just wink at me, and I'll take that as a yes, but I'll say the opposite, and then later I'll say yes, it sucks.
Wait, what?
What is your end game here, Tate?
Cool story, dude.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
Anyway, all right. Moving on. Moving on. We have Greg, our friend Greg Morals in the chat says, how nice to see so many friends in one place. What is going on? Awesome to see you, Greg. Les says, I just started reading Ron Moorhead's The Quantum Bigfoot. Seems like it may be an interesting read. Yeah, I actually saw him. Our table was literally right across from him at CryptoCon. Small Town Monsters was right next to Ron Moorhead, and I was across from kind of both of them. But I got to talk to him a little bit. I met him up at the Olympics. Eli and I met him when he was there at the Olympic Project cabin, which was fun. I don't know. I mean, it gets a little bit more into that woo kind of side. So I haven't really looked into that book or anything, but I'm sure it's probably an interesting read. I mean, there's lots of interesting stuff that you don't necessarily have to agree with. There's plenty of other perspectives to take in. So very cool. Now let's take a few questions, and I'm gonna keep going with the books, guys. So we have Greg who asks, question, what are each of your rarest Bigfoot / cryptid books?
Ooh, all right.
That's a tough one.
Let's see.
I think for me, it's the Meet the Sasquatch, since it's signed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how hard it would be to get all those guys in the same room again to sign that book. So for me, that's probably the rarest one that I have.
I'm not entirely sure.
I think in terms of Bigfoot specifically, I think Alexander and I could probably agree that this one right now, at least on the market, is the rarest because there's so little of them in circulation. And because of that, it drives up the price, obviously. But in terms of cryptid ones, and I think the museum in Maine still sells these, but I could be wrong. They sell what are copies of the original Science magazine reports on the Robert Rhines Loch Ness evidence. So these are magazines that are exact copies of magazines from 1972.
You know which one I really would like, a magazine I would love to get is the Argosy one from
totally.
Jerry Crew.
That one's very sought after.
I know when Jonathan Easley did his film, he interviewed Carl Crew, which is
super
awesome.
He's
he's what is it, grandson? I keep forgetting.
I think so. I think it was his grandfather.
But
Jonathan, you can correct us in the comments if we're wrong.
Yeah, he has a copy of the original Argosy magazine from when Jerry Crew got in that magazine.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I agree with Karac. This guy right here. I have other books that I don't know if they're rare or not. I just think just because of this one, the as Karac mentioned. So John Bindernagel wins that one. Anybody else?
I'll share my answer when I share my next book.
Okay.
All right.
So, awesome.
Okay.
Awesome.
Wink.
All right. So how about this? We'll take another question here. Unless Eli, did you have an answer?
No. I think it's my book. I think it's what I shared.
Okay.
The first edition of it.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yes,
the Sanderson. Yeah. Perfect. So John Ayers asks, okay, question of the whole panel. Older guy just recently getting into this area. What should be my first book purchase? Old guy just really wish I had known when I was younger.
I really think it's the book that Karac and Alex have.
That's a good one.
If this was more available, I would definitely recommend this. If you can get it and you can afford it,
if not, you can get Meet the Sasquatch is a pretty good first book. I would say.
I might say, if you're just getting into it, I would probably say maybe the Ken Gerhard book.
I was going to say that one.
I say that because it's widely available. It's relatively cheap. You can get it directly from Ken signed, and it's kind of encyclopedic that it has just a good recounting of a lot of classic Bigfoot things. So let's say you like the Jacko story, or you find a particular Bigfoot story that's mentioned in there, and then you can use that as a jumping off point to go look further into that. Also, one I'd recommend too is probably the Bigfoot book by Nick Redfern. Yeah. This thing is a huge book, and it doesn't go into super crazy details, but it's the same sort of thing. It lists famous Bigfoot stories or alleged Bigfoot stories with just a basic kind of description. So if you want to extrapolate from there, you totally can. And this is one of the ones I was going to mention. And again, because these are accessible, I mean, I don't know if you like, let's say you spend a lot of money getting a Sanderson or a Bindernagel book, and then you find out you don't really like the Bigfoot topic. I think maybe one of these is a little bit more of a budget friendly option, at least for a start.
Mm-hmm. For starting books, books that are meant for somewhat younger audiences can actually be really good introductory books because they're pretty simplified, but there are some that go into some good detail and keep it simplified. My personal favorite for introductory stuff is called Tales of the Cryptids. And this is by Kelly Milner Halls, illustrated by Spear Youngs, and also co-authored by Roxanne Young. And the segment that they have on mystery hominids is the longest segment in the book. And for something that's supposed to essentially be a kid's book, it talks about the origins of the word Sasquatch. It talks about all the different names that there are for hominids across the world. There's a whole page on the Skookum cast.
Wait, can you hold that one up again?
Yeah. So this is the cover right here.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and like right here's a whole page with Jeffrey Meldrum on the Skookum cast right here, which is a really interesting case. There's a whole page on hair evidence and on albino sightings, and it's very extensive for a kid's book. And there's the Pangboche hand right there as well. We're talking about the Yeti. It talks about the skunk ape.
So you said a kid's book?
It is a kid's book, but it's written in such a way to where it actually is more than that, I would say, because with a kid's book, you don't usually imagine necessarily that the kid comes out of it genuinely more informed than they went in with it. But that's exactly what this book actually accomplishes. It's a whole
might push a kid into anthropology or something. You never know.
Oh yeah, something weird like that. Yeah, who knows?
Cool.
A kid
grows a beard later on, starts wearing fingerless gloves. Yeah.
A kid goes into it reading a kid, and he comes out a PhD or something with a PhD or something. Bam! I'm a scientist.
That's
doctor.
great.
And Lauren Coleman's written a little. I'm not sure if it's a foreword. It's a very tiny foreword on the front.
Yeah,
there it is, right there. So yeah, if you're looking to get an introduction to cryptozoology, but especially to Bigfoot, I would really recommend Tales of the Cryptids.
Well, on that note,
you gave me, Jeremiah, stop calling me out.
Sorry, I didn't get what you said, so I'm just gonna smile and nod.
I see.
For a second.
On that note, as Greg mentions, who bought Dr. Meldrum's coloring book? So Jeff Meldrum has come out recently with Bigfoot Orang Pendek related children's coloring books. Great ideas for young kids. I mean, it's just something educational, like you said, Karac. I mean, oftentimes children books, they're not that educational. So something like that is just cool especially if they're interested in this kind of thing. If they're a fan of finding Bigfoot or any of that sort of thing, that's a really cool thing to kind of get them started off slow. I don't know if I'd recommend that for if you're, an adult or older, but pretty cool.
Hey, if you're an adult and you like coloring, there's nothing wrong with that.
That's true. Legit.
For sure. Now, I do want to read a few comments. Paroli here says, books in my collection. I want to read this because these are great ones. I don't have all of these. I just think they're awesome. But he mentions books in my collection, Sasquatch Apes Among Us. So that is one of the John Green ones. Best of Sasquatch, Raincoast Sasquatch. I do actually have Raincoast Sasquatch. I just cannot find it. There were a few books that I couldn't find. I don't know where I put them. And then Bigfoot Encounters in New York is amazing. That is cool too. I couldn't find that one either, but that's Paul Bartholomew. It's Bigfoot Encounters in New York and New England. It was one of the first books that had New England Bigfoot reports in it. Being a New Hampshire guy, of course, that appealed to me. And Paul Bartholomew is a wonderful, wonderful person. I've had him on the show. He's a good friend, just a great researcher. His brother as well, Robert Bartholomew, wrote a good Champ book about Lake Champlain. So really cool. Thanks for adding that. Donald Fuller says there are some great lectures on YouTube with Thomas Powell for sure. Wow. Definitely, we'll have to check that out. So Jerry Crew, to address that comment, Jerry is his great uncle. Okay, Carl Crew. So when we were talking about that, but Anyway, all right.
He's actually a really cool guy. Check him out, guys.
For sure.
And Jonathan.
We've got Jonathan Dodd says When Roger Met Patty is one of my faves. Who's that by?
I've heard of that one, but I don't know who the author is.
I don't know who wrote that. I know the song, the Yamarone song. Roger and Bob wrote out that day. I think we were singing that at Bluff Creek.
It's Bill Munn's.
That's
Bill Munn's.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the Bill Munn's one. Awesome. We have Steve Culls in the chat.
Hey,
Steve.
Says, howdy, guys. What's going on, Steve? Awesome to have you. Another friend of the program. And as Joe mentions aptly, Steve Culls' book, What Would Sasquatch Do, is a good one. I haven't checked that one out. I have to. Rebecca Slick, what's going on? We got Rebecca of the OP. She says another good book is Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. And I was gonna mention that one, so I might as well mention it now, kind of right on that. So this is obviously you have the Legend Meets Science documentary with Doug Hychek back in the day. One of the first really, I think one of the first TV appearances by Meldrum, I believe, where he, and there's a really good study of the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it's just a great book, and it's written at a very high level. So I think it's understandable. It's not, you don't have to be a PhD to read it, but it definitely, if you have a little bit of a background in anthropology or are really interested in this kind of stuff, it's great. It goes into details on a lot of foot cast, and I don't really need to say too much about Meldrum and his credentials. I mean, everyone probably knows about Meldrum.
His name speaks for itself.
Yeah, he's well known in these circles.
He's a legend. Yeah.
And I just say that because I don't want to rehash that.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is it's kind of an accompanying piece to the documentary by Doug, and that's something that Doug is currently working on with Legend Meets Science too. So,
dude, I cannot wait for that.
Quite a few years later, but definitely check out Legend Meets Science. This one's also widely available. I've seen them at Barnes and Nobles. You can get them online, probably Amazon, eBay, that kind of stuff, very easily. So I recommend checking that out as well for maybe a starter book too. Because it's written at, I think, a very scientific and very approachable level. So Sasquatch, the Legend Meets Science, for sure.
And I don't know if you mentioned Coleman's book, the one that you recommended, the True Story of Apes in America, is a good starter book as well.
Yes.
I don't know if
he did.
I don't think I did mention that for the starter question, but I talked about it earlier. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I think because these books, they'll tell you about Sanderson. There's sections about Ray Wallace, other people as well, Peter Byrne, a lot of those old timer guys that were not just the Four Horsemen, but there was those kind of sub Four Horsemen, people like Titmus, other folks that were involved that were kind of on the periphery.
Right.
So it's absolutely. I think it's important, and especially this day and age with just the attention spans and everything. And we're trying to make documentaries that kind of can be somewhat educational but entertaining. But a lot of these books, they can get very technical with this sort of stuff, which is great, especially if that's what you're looking for.
I'm going to make a new documentary. It's going to be the shortest one in history, and I'll tell you, spoiler alert: the only line in the movie is going to be "Bigfoot's real," and it's going to be end. Yeah.
Jonathan says, encyclopedia. I don't know.
Woof.
Not crowded, please. Okay, yeah, we're gonna roll from there. Jonathan says, Encyclopedia Monsters by Daniel Cohen. Oh, I guess Tate.
He's like, see you later.
Wait, did he really just leave?
Unless his internet crapped out at the perfect moment.
That is so funny, dude.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
He'll be back.
Anyway, all right. Well, moving on. Oh boy. Yeah. So who's got another book they'd like to share?
I'll bring one to the table after Eli.
Wow, nice save there, Karac.
I'm just trying to be polite, Eli. But if you don't want that, I can interrupt you all you want.
No, I'm gonna steal that from you somehow. That was a nice save. Anyways, mine is Tom Slick, True Life Encounters in Cryptozoology, another Laurent Coleman book.
Sweet.
We were talking about famous people kind of involved in Sasquatch. Tom Slick funded some expeditions in the early 60s, I believe, late 50s, early 60s, as well as doing a couple expeditions with Peter Byrne in the Himalayas looking for the Yeti. So the famous Peng Boshe hand being stolen was on one of those expeditions funded by Slick. He's a real behind the scenes figure that not a whole lot of people talk about. You know, Texas oil tycoon had a bunch of money and was just funding these things. Amazing, just found out yesterday, actually, or 2 days ago, he funded an expedition for the Orang Pendek back in the late 50s.
Oh, so cool.
Wow.
In the late 50s?
In the late 50s. I think it's
that must have been one of the first investigations into that.
Yeah.
Wow. I'd imagine so, yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty
Well,
nuts.
we learned a lot about, you know, the guys that went up there, obviously at Bluff Creek, you know, that were up there for a while, and Louse Camp where we stayed. I mean, that was where those guys stayed at the time on Tom Slick's expense.
There's that picture at the China Flats Museum with it was like Green and was it Renee DeHinden and a bunch of other people.
Itmus might have been there. I'm not sure. Yeah.
It was an old black and white photo of everybody at Louse Camp during the Slick expedition.
Wow.
This is I do want to read this comment real quick. Paroli says, "I'm a big fan of Lyle Blackburn stuff. Also, his writing style is so enjoyable." That is so true. His stuff about the Fouke monster, Boggy Creek monster. Lyle is just an excellent writer. You know, say what you want about the monster itself, but it's a book about these southern monsters. He's also got kind of he's done the Lizard Man and Southern Swamps. But I think his Boggy Creek stuff is amazing. Great.
His writing and everything is equally as good as his monster sauce. Just saying.
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely. Okay, Karac, go ahead.
Sure. So this is kind of a Bigfoot adjacent one. This is a Yeti book, but it's an interesting one because I actually, personally, would not recommend the author. But I would recommend this specific book. The author is Reinhold Messner, who is a mountaineer. I think he's in his Eli knows about this book. 80s or 90s now. He's older, but he it's actually a quote from John Karac or whoever he was. But he really does actually, in this quote in front of the book right here, put who Messner is in terms of his global fame into real context. Messner is to climbing what Michael Jordan is to basketball. He's one of the most acclaimed mountaineers who's ever lived. And he wrote this book called My Quest for the Yeti, Confronting the Himalayas' Deepest Mystery. And I will say right out the gate, and I'm not saying this to be like pro-Yeti or anti-Messner or anything like that, his analyses I don't think they'll interest readers that much because many of them seem inconsistent is what I would say without going into kind of my personal feelings on it.
Sure.
You don't like him, dude. Just say it.
The guy's 80 to 90 years old. Be easy on him.
Yeah, let's
Wow.
Casey's listening.
But his investigation into the Yeti, regardless of his feelings on the Yeti, are absolutely incredible. There are two really big things that I took from this. One was that he's probably talked to more Yeti witnesses than anybody else in the entire world, aside from people who live in the same area. There is a book that I'm attempting to write on a supposed Yeti mummified specimen kept in a monastery in Bhutan. Yes. And only photographs that we've had of it, or at least that we've known about, are from this National Geographic documentary that only has like 2 digital copies left in the world right now. Turns out Messner saw this thing decades prior and took clear photos of it, and they're in the book.
Wow.
And yeah, they're clearer than anything else that the National Geographic documentary actually had in it itself. And it's a quite interesting specimen. And it's, again, he has his own opinions on it, but he also describes things that visually aren't in the color documentary. So there's some interesting detail, even just gleaned from him having seen it. Another thing that I like about this book is that he has chapters that are dedicated entirely to Yeti reports, but ones that you've probably never heard of that are really interesting. There's one that inspired me to do a video on alleged Yeti locomotion that I hope to do soon from L.W. Davies, who was a military squadron leader. Mm-hmm. And while trekking through the Himalayas, he and his team supposedly came upon these bipedal sets of tracks that they followed when, as they're following them, something quite interesting happens, which is, let me read the quote a little bit here. From there, we backtracked up the steep western side of the valley, whence the beast had come, keeping clear of, but parallel to the tracks. It had walked steeply downhill on its hind legs, and where the gradient was too steep for walking, had slid. careful examination showed it had used its fists to either break or to assist in its descent, which, as far as I know, is one of, if not the only description of Yeti knuckle imprints, which is fascinating to me. So,
yeah, I don't think the Yeti gets enough love in a lot of these sorts of. There's just no overabundance of Bigfoot literature. Yeti, there's a much smaller pool.
Sorry.
Easy, Tate.
I was reading the comments, and John in there was asking, what am I drinking? Because he says it looks like a peroxide bottle. It kind of does.
Oh, my God.
That's funny. But, yeah, what I would say is get this book if you're interested in the Yeti, but don't read it for Mesner. Read it for the accounts he talks about, is what I would say. That, and if you're into a good adventure book, this is a good that. So,
sweet. Yeah, absolutely. I always like that when it's people who aren't really involved in the Bigfoot phenomenon, or that are sort of writing stuff about. This is, like Gareth Patterson. He wasn't really a Bigfoot guy, and he just happened to write a little bit about it, which I think is really interesting. And
great show with him, by the way. Great.
Yeah, that was super interesting. I mean, I'd love to get down there and film with Gareth at some point. South Africa is just an amazing place and a cradle of humanity, with all those discoveries there. So it's a pretty interesting. Mothman says Yeti is a misidentified wampa. Yeah.
Clearly.
It's got the horns, obviously, right on. But awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Karac. Anybody else want to jump in with a book as we're moving along?
I can. This is my answer to what's the rarest book you have. It is not a rare book, but Big Muddy Monster,
sweet,
but I have it signed by Nelson and Lewis from the Van Meter Visitor Festival. This is just a really cool look into a deep dive into pretty much a Bigfoot sighting in Illinois, but it gets so deep, like in the appendixes, like they have the actual police reports from the Big Muddy Monster sighting, which is so cool. I just love those like regional cryptid stories and like books that can get really deep into that.
Totally.
Is, something I enjoy. So
yeah, and I love Chad Lewis and Kevin. They kind of do these tag team sort of books, and had both of them on the show, as well as Joe Turi. He was in the comments a little earlier. He did the documentary that features Kevin and Chad about the Big Muddy Monster, which is really cool as well.
It's a great doc.
It's a good look into, like you said, a regional Bigfoot story, which I just think is super cool when you get to look into sort of those local stories. It may not, a lot of these books, they talk generally about the Sasquatch or Bigfoot mystery hominid phenomena, whereas you have books that will focus on certain regions. And I think those are important for folks as well.
Yep.
So, okay, moving along. Anyone have a book to share? Otherwise, I have a few more to go. Are you going to share the one we're thinking of, or are you
the one I'm thinking of?
That one's for the end.
Okay, no. This one was the one that Karac and I have.
Okay, yeah.
Don Hunter and Renee DeHenden. This is a cool book. I think it's $4 on Amazon.
Oh, it's not much. Yeah.
It's really cheap, but it's a really cool book, and it talks about it talks about kind of Ape Canyon and a little bit of Tom Slick in it, and it's a really cool book, and I like it, and I'm reading it. I keep it in the plastic it came in so I can keep it more preserved. So, and I keep it on display with my other books. So when I read them, I take them off the shelf and, devil into it. Or what's the word?
Dig into it.
Down the rabbit hole.
Dig into it. It's like, never mind. Just, know what I mean. Yeah, delve into.
Well, that reminds me of maybe a rare book. I don't have this. I don't know if any of you guys have this. Is Fred Beck's book? The ape.
That is a rare book. Yes.
That Mark Marcel has it though.
I know Mark has it, which is awesome.
I have a digital version.
Oh, there you go. Is it in the drive?
It is in the drive.
Oh,
it is in the drive for you.
Awesome.
Hey, put it in the drive for me, my man.
Drive.
Is that the first public mention of
Iowa, dude?
We can give them access. That's cool. We have this archive. We have an archive of stuff. No,
we're all going to jail.
It's just
you're hoarding this stuff for yourself.
Yes.
I thought we were friends.
No.
Well, it's shared.
Yeah,
it wasn't shared with you.
I thought it was shared.
It wasn't shared with Tater.
Secret stash. No, it's
Yeah.
a collection of stuff. We just have a bunch of stuff kind of put in there.
Only people who share stuff with me and our friends can call me Tater.
Tate, we broke bread together to get
I'm
biblical with it.
I'm just kidding.
We're comrades. What is this?
So Eli, Jonathan asks, does that Tom Slick book by Lauren Coleman talk a lot about the research findings in Bluff Creek?
I don't know.
Not a whole lot.
Because I haven't read that. No, it doesn't.
No, I think it's more about Tom Slick's kind of. It talks a lot about his upbringing and his life.
Karac, doesn't this one talk about it?
This one does talk a great deal about Bluff Creek, and I think it mentions Tom Slick a bit, although not very much.
It does mention Tom Slick, but I just can't remember.
Yeah, no, it goes pretty in depth about most of the book is kind of a review of American Bigfoot sightings.
It talks about
for a classic Bigfoot book, it's definitely this one. And for people who like history too, it's not just good in content. It's got some really cool little historical things. There's one of those old PO box addresses at the end.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Just a really cool little like, oh my god, people used to actually do that. They would put like if you have information, mail this and this and this. And books don't tend to really do that anymore. And it's just a really cool little piece of American literature history in that sense. But yes, it goes in depth on the Patterson film and the site, although nowhere near as in depth as things like the Bigfoot Film Journal do.
Because we all know like Renee DeHinden was one of the first people besides Bob Titmus to go to the film site after the film was taken and do research and all that down there.
Well, yeah, he was the one whose research mainly drove figuring out the size of objects and the distance Patty was from the camera and things like that, because he was measuring things in person while he was there.
And what's really cool about the book is Fred Beck, I think, didn't Fred Beck relay the story of Abe Canyon to DeHinden?
If not, DeHinden must have heard about it from Fred Beck's book, maybe. I'm not entirely sure on that.
I can't remember. I'll have to read it again.
Right on. All right, I'm going to share two more here. There's just so many that I find really cool. I mean, we could have the show all night, but I just want to go over a few more here. This one is Sasquatch Bigfoot, the Continuing Mystery by Mr. Thomas Steenberg. So,
I love that cover.
Thomas Steenberg is awesome.
Nice cover.
He's one of those great researchers that's still around. So he's been at it for a long time. He still does live shows, and I've had him on this show as well. He's a really approachable guy, very intelligent. I like his no-nonsense kind of attitude about it. He's written, I have his other book as well. I just kind of like this one because it's simple. It's got a lot of sketches. It talks a lot about, the British Columbia, a lot of British Columbia stuff, entire reports of eyewitness accounts. It's just very simple. It's a very thin book, this one in particular. I don't know if it's still around. This is one of his earlier ones, but Tom is great. He is a fantastic researcher, a very entertaining guy. He knew DeHinden and Green and met a lot of the Four Horsemen. So he's one of those researchers that we still have around. So
he's so cool.
Absolutely recommend Tom Steenberg and his no nonsense attitude. And I think he makes a good book or two as well. So that's one of my choices. And the next one I'm going to share here is this one, which is a little bit, I don't know if a lot of people know about this. It's called Still Living, Yeti, Sasquatch, and the Neanderthal Enigma by anthropologist Myra Shackley. Examines the case for hominid survival. So this one's pretty interesting. It approaches the Yeti and the Bigfoot stuff a little bit from that kind of Neanderthal perspective. Like perhaps is this Neanderthal that we're dealing with in Bigfoot? And what I like about it is there's great illustrations throughout the book. Not primarily, that's not the only reason I like it. It does a little bit covering on the Yeti, which again, I don't think gets enough love aside from maybe a few mere mentions, but it talks about, I think, a lot of human origins, our possible relationship with things like Neanderthal, these similar kind of human-like species that we interacted with. And is that maybe a little bit of the origins for our, interest in unknown things like Bigfoot? And, there's a whole chapter about the Chinese Yeti. And, from that perspective, which I don't think we hear about as much as we do for like the Nepalese side or the Bhutanese side, that part of Tibet and then the Himalayas is kind of, we don't hear a lot from out of there. So I think it's definitely interesting. I recommend this one. I have no idea where you can pick it up. Jay says I had Still Living and lost it. Yeah, it's definitely an older book. I know that for sure. And it's one of the ones that I got from John Horgan in his collection. So Still Living, Yeti, Sasquatch, and Neanderthal Enigma. Recommend that one for sure. Who's next?
I can go over I'll just rip the Band-Aid off and go over the last ones I have, if that's cool.
Yeah, totally. Go for it.
So this one is super cool. The Oregon Bigfoot Highway.
Yes.
At first you'd be like, do I need this book? Yes, you absolutely need this book to see what like happens when a group of intense Bigfoot researchers go crazy on an area and make maps and encounters and write down all sorts of stuff. And it's going to blow your mind. And it's going to get you pumped to do your own crazy research. Like this book. And also like side note, like get books from like the North American Bigfoot Center or like the International Cryptozoology Museum. So it supports them. If you have to go through Amazon, that's cool too. But you know, support the museums and stuff.
Joe Bielart is a fantastic researcher.
For sure.
He's been on Bigfoot and Beyond, Cliff and Bobo. He kind of researches a little, I guess, with Cliff and a lot of those areas that we featured, Eli and Tate, that we went to.
I was going to ask, was that one we were reading about that fisherman guy?
So we ran into those Satanists in the woods based on one of the
areas in there.
It was that
one of the encounters.
Area.
Yeah. So one of the encounters really very fast. I'm not going to mention which one. Not to blow that area out, but a really interesting encounter in this book that we were reading, basically in a spot where it happened, that we ran into those Satanists out this past summer in that Mount Hood area, and we kind of got kicked out of the area. But there's 31 sightings and 43 track finds. I think even if you're not from this area, if you ever plan on going there, or you just want to, as you mentioned, I think, what do they call themselves? The
Clackamas Sasquatchians.
Yeah.
Something like there's like 14 of them. It's fascinating.
Class act.
I will tell you that story and the encounter in that book had me just. I was like really into it because it was so captivating. Like I'm just picturing, because even being at that spot, just picturing that encounter happening. So I think if you like that, that's a good book to get. It's definitely one I need to get on my bucket list.
And there's so many maps, and like you said, Jeremiah, awesome. This is, I think, one of the best kind of a group effort, just really in one particular area that has produced Bigfoot sightings and evidence for decades and continues to. I think this is a fantastic one, and I got this one at the North American Bigfoot Center, which is Cliff Barrickman's museum, as Jeremiah said, especially for the holidays. If you want to help support the small businesses, buy some books from people like Laurent Coleman, Cryptozoology Museum, Cliff, other folks as well. Really do your part to help support those kind of local institutions, because they put out some good stuff and they support authors as well like that. So
awesome.
Absolutely. Jeremiah, keep on going.
Real quick, the last two are kind of bonuses. So first bonus is West Virginia Cryptids by Les Odell. I saw he had to jet out.
Les was in the chat.
This is a cool little booklet, but I brought it up because there is a regional Bigfoot in here called the Polk Gap Monster, and that's it only has that information. Like you're not going to find information about that regional cryptid in any other book I've seen, that I've looked for. So this is a very unique, if you're into regional Bigfoot, check this out, Polk Gap Monster.
I have to mention.
Go ahead.
Interject. I was sitting there with Les the other night when I was staying with him on our way back from Crypticon, and I got to look at some of his sightings collection with Bigfoot reports from West Virginia. It's incredible. Les is amazing, very humble guy, very down to earth. He's contributed a lot of cast and stuff to the West Virginia Bigfoot Museum, and he's one of these he's also no nonsense guy. He plenty of things that he'll say. That's not really, maybe it's in your mind that it's a Bigfoot kind of thing. So he's very level-headed. I think I respect him for that. Just an all-around great guy. But his Bigfoot collection, amazing. I was looking through decades of reports. West Virginia is just one of those states that has a lot of stories and produces a lot of Bigfoot eyewitness encounters, and reports. So definitely Les Odell, recommend that for sure.
Last but not least, imagine that this is kind of going to be an infomercial, but imagine for the mere price of less than $20 a year, you could get kind of like a small Bigfoot book in your mailbox every month. Hey, you can, kids, with the Bigfoot Times.
The Bigfoot Times.
That good. I'm not an affiliate, but if he makes an affiliate, I will do it. But everyone should be on the Bigfoot Times, and you'll find out about stuff coming out. Like Daniel Perez has been writing about books coming out that no one else knows this information. Like Daniel's got the hook up with the information.
He has his ear to the ground.
He's got it. He's
been doing the Bigfoot Times for so many years, well before the internet. So
I've been in a couple of issues of it.
The Bigfoot Times.
The Bigfoot Times, dude.
Bigfoot Times. What's up, dude?
He had it. It was originally titled, I think, Big Foo, and then Times was just one word, so Bigfoot Times. It just kind of we
found that out reading this book.
That's right.
Side, dude.
It's amazing. Reading is fun, guys.
That's right. Bigfoot Times.
So cool. Absolutely love that. Yeah, that's a really good point. Another kind of small business, one guy doing it, and he's shipping them.
Well, I was going to say that with going along with Jeremiah. I was going to say if you want to get into, if you're not much of a reader but want to get into Bigfoot and you're intimidated by some books, I think the Bigfoot Times is pretty good alternate to jump off on and get started with.
Yep. And it also has lots of, he'll do accounts of events that happen, Bigfoot conferences. He'll talk about upcoming films, all that sort of stuff. And he has a Bigfooter of the Year sort of thing that he puts out every year. So that's a coveted thing amongst many Bigfooters. So definitely check out that. Daniel Perez, he's been around for a long time. Should be no stranger to people, especially with in regards to like the Patterson-Gimlin film and the investigating Bluff Creek and that sort of stuff. So right on. Karac, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I'll speed through the last
go for it.
Like 2.5 books here, because one of them is not actually a book, but I want to talk about it really quickly. The more interesting one is probably this one, Bigfoot, the Yeti in Sasquatch and Myth and Reality by John Napier.
Napier, another very interesting character.
Yeah, he was in, and this can be found on the Sasquatch Archives YouTube channel now, what was essentially the first American Bigfoot documentary. He featured predominantly in, and it's the only one that I've seen him feature predominantly in as well. So I'm not sure if he was in a whole lot himself. He also worked on the Minnesota Iceman case for a while. Right. And the book itself is certainly a the way that it's written is not written like the typical Sasquatch book. It is very analysis oriented and on several levels. It's written by someone who's a primatologist, for one thing. So you have a lot of biological analysis, but you've also got this kind of interesting, almost sociological analysis of the placement of the Sasquatch in mythologies around the world, what purpose the archetype of the Sasquatch might serve, why it's important that we understand what the Sasquatch is in mythology. And then you've got these, diagrams of sightings that date back, here we go. One right here, Ape Canyon's mentioned right up here. This whole table of sightings with names, locations, dates, how tall was the animal, were there sexual organs observed? It's really, really interesting stuff, and it's a great book. I recommend it for anyone who's into Bigfoot. I really do.
And Napier was, I don't know if you mentioned it, he was a primatologist, right?
Yes, he was. He is one of the only solely primatologist scientists I've seen who worked on Bigfoot, because you have a few anthropologists like Jeff Meldrum who are technically more like I'm not sure what the word is, but he's focused on locomotion.
Yeah, locomotion, primate locomotion.
Yeah,
I know the other one would be Esteban Sarmiento, I think.
Esteban Sarmiento, and I guess you could potentially argue Jane Goodall.
Yeah, she's made statements
about it. Yeah,
right.
And then we have this other kids book that I have, and the reason I have this is because this is actually the only book on this case, and I think this might be one of the most significant Sasquatch cases in North America. Old Yellow Top.
Oh, I love that story. Yes.
Yeah, and this is the only book on it. It's in a pretty, this is definitely a very young kid's book, but it does go into detail about, who had what sightings, where they happened, what years the Old Yellow Top sightings happened, etc. So it is in depth in terms of the information we have available on Old Yellow Top. But this is the book itself right here.
Nice.
It's called, get ready for this, Old Yellow Top Sasquatch, Yellow-Haired Giant Ape That Can Move Between Worlds, Mythology for Kids. Weirdly enough, the book itself makes absolutely no mention of said moving between worlds, so I don't know why it's in the title.
The publicist had a wild time with that.
if you like Old Yellowtop, this isn't only the book for you. It is literally the only book for you. There is no other book, so we're kind of stuck with this. We have no choice.
Well, what if you like Red Top or Shock Top?
Carrot Top.
Oh, Carrot Top.
Don't even bring that up. I used to be called that at work. Fun fact.
Oh no.
So,
it's a really fascinating case.
It is.
Look at the top. I mean, and a lot of those Canadian reports are just so interesting.
Yes.
Top is a classic.
As Greg and a few people know, me and Greg and potentially you, Alexander, are working on a bit of a project about Old Yellowtop. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
What are you talking
Whoa,
about?
spoiler.
I told you about this. What?
Nice.
Eli's left. Okay, so the last thing I want to show is a thing that we've already talked about.
I gotta read this though. Do you know who can move through worlds? Robbie effing Knievel.
True facts.
Go ahead, Karac.
Well, we've already mentioned this, but I watched it and I was absolutely blown away by it. I think it's the best thing I've watched on the subject since Legend Meets Science, and I really do mean that. It's On the Trail of Bigfoot: The Discovery. Came out recently, obviously. Both Eli and Alex are in it, and it's absolutely incredible. I can't, as someone who's taken both anthropology and primatology classes in pursuit of an anthropology degree, I can't begin to tell you how important I think this documentary is. God, I can't even begin with it. Everything from the analysis that team members of the Olympic Project give to the details that the film provides on the mystery in the Olympic area to even the artwork, everything about it doesn't even scream, this is a documentary about a monster. It screams, this is a documentary. It feels like you're watching a documentary on gorillas. It's just that the gorillas are so sneaky, you don't see them in person during the film.
Right. Shout out to Jonathan Dodd for some of those illustrations.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. They were great. They were really amazing. He did a
and
really
there was
good
other
job.
artists, but Jonathan,
Yeah.
since he's in the chat.
All the artists that were in this documentary did a really good job of capturing what a great ape in North America would look like. Not just based on reports, but also based on, all of them look so individual. Some of them are that typical, really big and sturdy Bigfoot, and some of them slouch and have like a gut and have a, less pointed head. So maybe they're females or something. And it's like so interesting. The entire thing. If you are into anthropology or primatology and you have even the slightest interest in Bigfoot, I cannot recommend enough that you would watch this film. I really can't stress that. So, congratulations to everyone who worked on this film because it's a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Yeah, Seth did an amazing job with it. Eli did a fantastic job, of course, as you mentioned, with Olympic Bigfoot. Great tie-in, and those documentaries, they're not definitive. They don't prove anything, but they're just a really interesting look into something that I think more folks should really look into. And
I know
maybe
one thing it does prove. None of us in here are city slickers.
What is that?
What does that even mean?
I don't even know. I don't
know.
I
wasn't even in that film.
Follow up to that, Tate.
No, it's just some of the comments on these videos are like,
we get some weird comments.
Yes,
calling us city slickers.
City slickers.
But follow up. I just wanted to mention this, and this is one I was going to mention. This is another book that I have. This is the On the Trail Companion, Volume 1. This is basically a Small Town Monsters book all about various productions on the Trail of Bigfoot: The Journey, which features Steve Coles and a lot of the folks in the Adirondack area, Paul Bartholomew. I got to write a lot for this book, not only for On the Trail of Bigfoot: The Journey, but On the Trail of Bigfoot, On the Trail UFOs, and then it's got a whole section at the end about the Olympic Project stuff, or I should say the Discovery. So and what's really cool about it is there's a lot of pictures and illustrations, and like there's us and the crew and a mountain in upstate New York, and it's available I think on the Small Town Monsters website, but they were selling them at CryptidCon. A lot of folks were getting them. I mean, you got these beautiful panoramic kind of images like this, where this is up in the Olympic Project area. This is in the Olympics. Really cool. So it's a fun one if you want to learn about behind the scenes some of these productions, but also just sneak peeks of kind of the stuff that happens as we're out on these investigations. Like I said, I got to write a little bit on this, which was a lot of fun. I love writing, and I'll make a little announcement about something else writing wise in a bit here. But yeah, so that's on the tail of that. So appreciate that. Anybody else? So Eli, you got anything you want to share?
I'm out of books.
So you're just
I'm out of Bigfoot books. I have other books. You want me to leave because I have no more Bigfoot books to talk about? I'll leave.
Do you have a Bible?
Like a
Just trying
Tolkien
to
book?
leave.
Anything? Like,
Bigfoot.
Okay, all right.
In the Bible.
How about this, Eli? What is your lake? How about a lake monster book? We'll do that.
Oh,
You have one?
you know what? I will do one. Actually, hold on.
I'm getting ready for him to bring out that one Dr. Seuss book that has a sea serpent on the front of it.
Oh, nice.
One fish, two fish, something like that.
So we've had a couple comments, people asking if we could put a list together of certain books. I don't. It's going to be hard to recount it all. I'll do my best to try and put some of these in the description. Peggy, thanks for the super chat. She says, "This has been a fun show, guys. Thanks. Getting together a must-have books from tonight. A list of those. Awesome. Very cool. Eli, go ahead."
So
right.
this is In Search of Ogopogo, and little known fact. I don't know if you guys knew this. Arlene Gow actually just passed away earlier this month.
Yep.
Sorry to hear that.
But it's a really good book, really good read. There's quite a bit of evidence out there on Ogopogo that I had no idea till I did my Cryptid Campfire episode on Ogopogo and read this book as research. I think it's right up there with Champ, with the likelihood of being real, you know?
I think I have that book. I haven't had a chance to read it, though.
Yeah,
I have
check
a
it out.
similar one.
The cover looks a little cheesy, but it's okay.
I'll show you this
A lot of
book
these books have funny covers.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karac.
I was going to say, Eli, I think I showed you this book. This is the one by Mary Moon, and it's just called Ogopogo, the Okanagan Mystery. But it's I'll like lend it to you sometime. It's a book that is entirely just accounts. All of it is accounts of Ogopogo, every single page, which is incredible because it's roughly 200 pages of stories. A new story every 2 pages or something. So maybe about 100 accounts in this one book. And I recommend this one as well for lake monster lovers for sure.
Cool.
Right on. Okay, anybody else as we start winding down here? I've got a few more to mention just in closing. And I know Tate has a special one he's going to talk about, but anybody else want to mention a last book?
I got a book, but it's not a Bigfoot book, but I have it signed by somebody and it's mentioned. Bigfoot is mentioned.
Oh, what is it?
So it's that book I showed you guys earlier. You guys were laughing at it. It's called Big Cats. It's written by Holiday Reinhorn. And for those who don't know, it's the wife of Rainn Wilson.
Yeah.
And she gave me this. She gave me this book as a gift, and signed it to me, and wrote, "Bigfoot lives."
Oh, that's cool.
So for those who don't believe in Bigfoot, there's proof that Bigfoot is real.
Right on.
Can't deny it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, last call. I'm going to finish up here and then let Tate make the announcement about the other one, which is really cool. So this is one of the John Green ones I have, the best of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, the latest scientific developments. I think this is the last one that he did before he passed. And it's a big book, but it's got a lot of that basic sort of info, great encounter stories. There's a whole section about what I really like is these maps. So this is Northern California here. It's got all the different sightings. Then it has one for Oregon. It has one for British Columbia. It's mostly obviously focused on the Pacific Northwest, given that's where most of that early investigating went on, especially with what John Green was involved. You've got, the Janaqua, or however you say it, the masks and some of that sort of stuff. So definitely recommend that. Anything by John Green, especially The Apes Among Us. I mean, that's a great one, but this is a good one too. I don't think it gets as much attention as Apes Among Us. And then my last book is a fairly recent one. It is Bigfoot in Maine by Michelle Soulier. So Michelle is really cool. She's up in Maine. We got to interview her actually for our Beyond the Trail Big Sasquatch in the Pine Tree State that Eli and Karac and I did this past summer. And I think what's so cool about it is Michelle she had a bookstore that was right next to where the International Cryptozoology Museum was in Portland, Maine, right next to Laurent Coleman, and was really interested in this weird Maine stuff. And this she'd been working on for a decade. And what I really love is it's just encounters about, talks about the possibility of stuff in Maine, the habitat descriptions of Maine. And then it goes into interviews with eyewitnesses and stories like the Durham gorilla case or cases of loggers up in the North Country, other parts. And for me, particularly being in New Hampshire, there's not enough books about Bigfoot in this area of the country. So I absolutely love it. I definitely recommend it. It just came out this past summer. And like I said, we interviewed her in our documentary. She's really cool. She's working on a second edition with more reports. And whenever I get new reports from Maine, I send them her way. Like I was at an event recently in right on the New Hampshire-Maine border. And the guy told me his story of there was like 13 of them snowmobiling near the Canadian border, and they saw a Sasquatch come out from the tree line right in front of a logging road cut, and they all were on their snowmobiles, and they looked at it, and one of them made a noise, and this thing whooped back and then went off into the woods.
Wow.
And like 13 of them observed it. And whenever I get a report like that, I send it to Michelle, and she has some great research skills. She discovered a report from 1895 of a gorilla seen in a part of New Hampshire where I do some research. So it's pretty incredible. So definitely recommend that. And on that note, I do want to say that something that I'm planning on for the future is to put a book out about Bigfoot in New Hampshire. It hasn't really been done yet. The thing about it is I have my database up here. I have 60 reports that I've gotten over the past few years since I really got into it, either by doing library talks. I get a lot of reports that way. A lot of the YouTube comments on videos about New Hampshire, whether it's Beyond the Trail or on this channel, I get comments of people giving me reports, and I'll often get people sending me emails with their stories. I've gotten some really, really interesting ones. So I've got about 60 reports, and I'm hoping to put that together into a book and just basically have it be a collection of those stories. It's not going to be me talking about my adventures looking for Bigfoot, whatever. That's not that. It's going to be, here's what New Hampshire's like, and here are a lot of the reports broken down by county, just because I don't think this area gets enough love. And even I was just talking to Renee from Finding Bigfoot at CryptidCon, and as soon as I mentioned I was from New Hampshire, she was like, "Oh, I love that state. It's one of the places that really reminded me of the Pacific Northwest," and we got to talking about it. And so the habitat is there, and I don't think people know enough about New England, some of these northern New England states, and how much territory and what a rich history reports we have. So since we're talking about books, I figured I'd mention that. That's something I've been talking about for a while. I'm hoping to get that started in this next coming year in 2022. So, as Mothman says, it's time for Pedikov to write the Granite Foot book. Pedikov Media Compendium. Yeah. Thank you, Linda, for that super sticker as well. Appreciate that. But so that's my little announcement. And then Tate, I know you were waiting on the cool announcement from you. People may already know about this, but
yeah,
please.
I was gonna say some of you guys may already know, and they may have already ordered it. But the new Bluff Creek Project book that has been in the works for quite a long time is finally available on Amazon.
Wonderful.
So go pick that up. And it was, I know earlier on.
That's me.
World.
That was scary.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm living in a college dorm, and when someone leaves the front door open too long, the alarm goes off, and it gives everyone a heart attack.
Yeah, that freaked me out.
Oh my Lord.
I was gonna say, because I know Jeremiah was laughing at the fact that I was was holding back when Karac was talking about that one book.
Exactly.
About the measurements of all the stumps and everything. So what the Bluff Creek Project book is about is how they found the film site. And it goes into depth on how they were able to use the stumps to determine this is the area. And I believe there's gonna be a lot of stuff about measurements in there, about trees in relation to where Roger was and all that. Because I know when they were looking for the film site, they drew their own maps and everything like that. So there's a lot of cool things in there. And then to go along with that announcement of this book, I'm working on an audio book for it.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
So I know some of you guys in here may know about it already, because I showed you a list of people who I want to have read a chapter for each chapter of the book. But that's probably going to be sometime later, near the beginning of the year, next year. So
That's awesome.
But I'll give people enough time to buy the book and read it, and then I'll come out with the audio book for it.
That is so cool. And I have it pulled up on the screen here, folks. This is the book. It just came out, yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday. I bought mine. Yeah, I bought it as soon as I found out. I was like, ordered.
Great Christmas present for folks, holiday present, whatever. Awesome. I mean, these guys do a great job. We featured them obviously in Bigfoot at Bluff Creek, but it's no secret the Bluff Creek Project, they are the ones that rediscovered that film site and have done a lot of studying on it since. And when we were down there, Robert and Rowdy and, all the folks involved, and Tate as well as a member of that, they know that place inside and out. And it was such a pleasure to be able to go there. I mean, if it was just Eli and a couple of us just out there, we would have had a good time. But when we were out there with Tate, Jonathan, and Rowdy and these guys, they showed us exactly where Patty walked, where certain things that are still seen today in the film can be viewed, on that site, because the site has obviously changed so much. So I definitely recommend that. Anybody interested in the Patterson-Gimlin film, this is a great book to get and help support, some great people as well involved.
Also, too, I just want to mention in the book, Robert wrote down the transcript of my interview with Bob Gimlin at the film site.
Oh, nice.
So the full interview word for word is in the book. So that's the only place you can read it. The only place you can actually view the whole footage, the interview, is North American Bigfoot Center.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. That's another little cool thing you can look in there. And it mentions the podcast I started and everything. And it mentions how there's going to be a lot of cool things in this book.
Yeah. Jonathan says, bought mine on Amazon, gets here in a week. Can't wait. Yeah.
Mine gets here tomorrow.
Mine
gets here tomorrow.
Lovely.
Awesome.
Hey, well, fellas, I got to get going.
Yeah. We'll just kick you out right away.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Thanks for being the surprise guest, Eli. It was awesome. Originally it was just to me, the four of us, but awesome to have you in as well, as always.
Anytime, as long as I'm available.
For sure, yeah. Well, we're just wrapping up here anyway, but go ahead.
I guess Jeremiah and Tate, I'll be in touch with you after the show.
Whoa, tell me more.
To talk to you about the secret thing.
Yes,
the secret thing.
The secret drive.
And Karac.
You guys know. Karac and Alex.
Karac, we already know.
Well, why is Karac doing this?
The drive.
I don't know.
Oh, when you said the drive, I was like, "Where are we driving?" So my brain just completely.
We're not being cryptic about this.
Eli's going to pick us up, but state by state. So he's going to get Jeremiah first, and then me, and then
let's do it. Let's do it, dude.
It's road trip.
Okay.
That's the drive.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are we going?
All right.
We're going to your mom's house.
I'm already here.
Okay. All right. We'll see you later.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Oh boy. Yeah. No, it's basically it's a drive where we just have some files that we've collected over the years and stuff like that. It's nothing super. I mean, a lot of people probably have seen a lot of the stuff that's in there. It's just collection of reports, stuff like that we've come across. It's easy to have it in a central place where we can all have access to it because we're all different coasts, different parts of the country, parts of the world. So,
and like you said, to clarify, it's not like it's a secretive thing.
No,
it's shared with whoever the hell wants to contribute to it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly right. Well, yeah, guys, it's been really awesome talking books, having some fun, obviously goofing off a little bit, but I think we did have a very serious discussion about a lot of these books. I will try to put some of the titles in the comments for books for folks that are watching afterwards. If not, just try to write them down as we're talking. But yeah, these are certainly not the end all be all of Bigfoot books. There are plenty of other Sasquatch or Bigfoot related books. These are just some from our collections that are great. And we just, I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to share that. And I thought this discussion, I haven't really seen it done, especially in this day and age where there's just so many documentaries, there's so many TV shows, that sort of stuff. I think it's good to get back to the basics. And, we try to make our documentaries as informative as we can. You can't ever be as informative as a book or, something published, literature, I should say, but we try our best to keep it on that level. So we appreciate everyone. Lots of great people in the chat tonight. Really awesome to have everyone from Steve Coles to Jay Birch, Brent Dill, who's going to be our guest next week. Just so many great people. And you guys all know who you are. Lots of friends and people that I saw at CryptidCon as well. And yeah. And thank you guys all for coming on.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah, and until next time, guys, as I mentioned, next week's show, we will have on Brent Dill of Washington State. We're going to be talking with him and, kind of his Bigfoot journey and just what a beautiful part of the country he's in. And I've talked to him a little bit about some of the areas he researches in, and they're really cool. I mean, the Cascades in that area, it's between that and the Olympics, as we saw in Olympic Bigfoot, there's just so much good stuff out there. A lot of great people as well researching. So yeah, until next time, everybody, this has been another episode of Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live. If you guys like this sort of thing, please subscribe, share it. You can throw some suggestions, comments, let me know how we're doing. Got some other videos coming out soon that are not going to be live shows, but just sort of videos from travels and trips and stuff like that. So should be fun. And thank you guys all. Robbie Knievel for life. Absolutely.
That's true.
Macy says, great job tonight. Love hearing from y'all. Thanks. Jay, fantastic show. Tommy Cooper, great show. Thank you guys, everyone in the comments. Thank you so much.
That's who you need to have on that. Here's my suggestion. Have on Robbie Knievel.
I don't know. I think that's too much information. That would be too intense.
Information overload.
This guy knows too much. He knows more than
all
of us
if
combined.
you have someone on who knows definitively the truth about Bigfoot,
yeah,
you can't have any shows after that.
That's true.
That's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
I just end the podcast there.
Exactly.
End the live stream. But
It's the
anyway.
pinnacle. There's nothing beyond that. You know what they say? There's nothing beyond Robbie Knievel. That's all there is.
We'll leave it at that. So, folks, obviously we're joking. I do recommend watching the Robbie Knievel documentary because it's hilarious. The guy, it's a piece of art, I guess.
And Bobo is involved with it too.
Bobo is involved. The Bluff Creek Project.
Robert Leiterman is in it.
Yep.
As well.
Bluff Creek Project. It's a struggle to watch if you're really into Bigfoot, but you'll get some good laughs. So, but anyway, guys, again, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you everyone in the comments with your questions and quips, everything. Appreciate all the people watching and tuning into the show every week, and we will see you guys all next week. Until then, have a great rest of your week, everybody.